In 1840, Ann Arbor was only 16 years old. The University of Michigan had relocated here from Detroit 3 years earlier, but it had not yet taught its first collegiate class in its new home. A few miles beyond the young village, surrounded by the open countryside of Ann Arbor Township, a stone farmhouse rose from the land. Its walls were assembled by hand. Its floors were laid in soft pine. Its windows looked out across fields, gardens, trees, and working farmland. The people who built it could not have imagined the Ann Arbor that would eventually surround them. They could not have imagined a university known around the world. They could not have imagined the hospitals, laboratories, neighborhoods, highways, and cultural institutions that would eventually define this community. But they built something intended to last. And it did. For nearly 2 centuries, this house has collected the evidence of the lives lived inside it. A wedding remembered in the parlor. A fireplace assembled stone by stone from material gathered across the property. University of Michigan students filling rooms built more than a century before they arrived. A late-night gathering connected to one of America's most distinctive musical satirists. Children growing up among gardens, historic outbuildings, tree houses, swimming pools, skating rinks, and homemade adventures. An engineer experimenting with solar energy decades before residential solar became common. And one family spending more than 70 years adapting an old house without allowing it to forget what it had been. Some houses preserve a moment. This house preserves a timeline. The original stone, the old glass, the family-built fireplace, the raised roof, the vanished woodshed, the modern kitchen. Nearly every generation remains visible. This is not a house frozen in 1840. It is a house in which 1840 is still alive. I'm Chris Hubble, and this is History Loves Company. This is the story of 1575 Earhart Road. To understand the house, we first have to understand the landscape into which it was built. Long before these stone walls stood here, this region was part of the ancestral and continuing homeland of indigenous peoples, including the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. The story of this land did not begin with a deed. It did not begin when Ann Arbor was founded, and it did not begin when the first stone was placed into this farmhouse. The construction of the home marks only the point when this particular building enters the history that we can still see. Ann Arbor was founded in 1824. During its earliest years, it remained a small settlement surrounded by farms, forest, country roads, and open land. The University of Michigan had originally been established in Detroit. In 1837, the university relocated to Ann Arbor. The institution itself had made the same journey we have been following through this series, from Detroit to Ann Arbor. But moving a university and opening a university were not the same thing. Buildings had to be constructed. Professors had to be appointed. Students had to arrive. Those first collegiate classes did not begin until 1841. That fall, 7 students were taught by 2 professors. 7 students, 2 professors, and a future no one could yet see. By then, this house had already entered the landscape. Only a few miles separated the early campus from this farmhouse. Today, that distance feels small. In 1840, it carried someone beyond the young center of Ann Arbor and into the countryside. There were no surrounding residential developments. No sprawling university medical complex. No stadium filled with more than 100,000 people. No modern skyline. This was a working agricultural landscape. The acreage around the farmhouse was not simply scenery. It was part of how the property functioned. There was room for animals, gardens, fruit trees, outbuildings, equipment, and the daily work required to sustain a rural household. The identity of the first family to call this house home has faded from the story currently available to us, but their work remains. You can see it in the thickness of the stone walls, in the exposed masonry, in the original soft pine floors, in the old wavy glass that still gently reshapes the view beyond each window, in the subtle variations that separate something created by hand from something manufactured to be perfectly uniform. The house itself has become an archive. And like every meaningful historical record, it contains layers. Closets appeared where there had once been almost none. A fireplace was constructed. A woodshed disappeared. An exterior stone wall became an interior wall. Then, decades later, someone opened that wall and rediscovered the roofline of the structure that had once stood against it. Most renovations try to hide the fact that a building changed. 1575 Earhart Road allows us to see the changes. That is where its real story begins. Some houses reveal their history through a perfect sequence of deeds, maps, and photographs. This one offered part of its story through coincidence. During the early 1970s, the parents of the child who grew up here took a rare cruise. According to the family memoir, the passenger information included each traveler's home address. Another couple aboard the ship noticed the Earhart Road address and sought them out. The woman told them that she had grown up at 1575 Earhart Road. Her family had owned the property for many years, and one of the most important moments of her life had taken place inside the house. She had been married in the parlor. Imagine this room, before the modern kitchen, before the renovated bathrooms, before the attached garage, before many of the homes now found throughout the surrounding area. A family gathered here. A couple stood here, and this parlor became part of the beginning of their marriage. A deed might tell us when a property changed hands. It would never tell us that. The woman explained that her family had eventually sold the property to another couple during the late 1940s. That couple would later sell it to the family who arrived in 1954. She also sent older photographs of the farmhouse. Those images showed an earlier version of the property, including a period when the exterior stone remained unpainted. The photographs preserved details that memory alone could not. Earlier windows, earlier porches, earlier roof lines, the appearance of the house before later generations placed their own mark upon it. This is why the family history matters. Official records preserve transactions. Families preserve meaning. One can tell us who held the deed. The other can tell us where someone stood when they were married. In late 1954, the story becomes far more personal. That year, a young family purchased 1575 Earhart Road. Their son was 4.5 years old. His younger sister was 2. The property they entered was much larger than the home site immediately surrounding the house today. It contained approximately 10 acres, 4 outbuildings, a 1948 International Harvester Farmall club tractor, and a horse named Petty Point. Their father worked as an aeronautical engineer at the University of Michigan's North Campus. Their mother had previously been a teacher and was then raising the children at home. The father understood what the family had found. A historic stone house, 10 acres, 4 outbuildings, and all of it remarkably close to Ann Arbor. One of the son's earliest memories takes place near the side door beside the driveway. He was about 5 years old. His younger sister was nearby. Their parents were talking with visitors. Nothing dramatic happened. There was no celebration, no major project, no reason anyone would have thought to photograph the moment. Everyone simply seemed happy, or as the family memoir puts it, at least relaxed. That may sound like a small memory, but homes often enter our lives through moments exactly like that. Not through a purchase agreement, not through an architectural description, through a feeling. Petty Point inspired a slightly different feeling. The horse could not be ridden. She had a habit of biting people, and she did not remain with the family for long. The Farmall cub tractor proved far more useful. It became part of the work of shaping the acreage around the farmhouse. The family created a vegetable garden just north of the driveway. Most years, it measured approximately 15 feet by 40 feet. They also began planting trees. During either 1956 or 1958, rows of tiny evergreen seedlings went into the ground near the garden. Some were only about 6 inches tall. Several of those trees are believed to remain today. What began as a line of fragile twigs became mature trees that watched the children and the house grow around them. As the family plowed the garden and prepared the soil for planting, the earth repeatedly returned stones. Those rocks were gathered and carried to a growing pile along part of the northern property boundary. The rock pile eventually extended for roughly 20 yards. Vegetation grew over portions of it, but the stones remained. They became a physical record of years spent working the land, and some of those stones would eventually find their way back inside the house. The surrounding area looked very different in 1954. Between the farmhouse and Plymouth Road, the family remembered only a small number of neighboring homes. 2 of the closest properties to the north belonged to the same local family. One house stood on the hill. The other was a smaller rental property closer to the road. The people living nearby became lifelong friends. This was country living, but it was not an isolated existence. Neighbors knew one another. They shared skills. They helped when the work became too large for one person. And when the family began adapting the old farmhouse, one neighboring carpenter would become an important part of the story. The house was filled with character. It was not filled with storage. According to the family memoir, there may have been only one true closet in the entire home, a coat closet in the dining room. There was also only one bathroom. The parents initially used the front office or den as their bedroom. Soon after they arrived, built-in drawers and closets were constructed in that room. The work was completed by a nearby carpenter remembered as Mr. Culp. The first floor bathroom was also relocated during the early years of the family's ownership. The house once ended near the stone wall now visible in the rear office. Beyond it were a framed section, a pump room, an early laundry area, an old woodshed, and a door leading outside. The long-side porch reflected a different arrangement of doors, walls, and rooms. These were not glamorous improvements, but they reveal the real work of living in a historic home. The family had not purchased a museum. They had purchased a house that needed to support modern life. They needed bedrooms, storage, laundry, bathrooms, heat. The question was never whether the house should change. The question was how to change it without disconnecting it from the place that it had always been. One of the most memorable features inside the home looks old enough to belong to the original stone construction. It does not, and its real history is even more meaningful. During the late 1950s, the family's father decided to build a fireplace using stones gathered directly from the property. The living room floor became a field of rocks. Large stones, small stones, flat pieces, irregular pieces. The children remembered their parents sitting among them. They turned each stone, compared its shape, studied its edges, and decided where it might fit. It was less like ordinary construction and more like assembling an enormous puzzle. The work continued for weeks, possibly months. Additional stones were collected near the south porch. Others were split in the yard. Slowly, the stones began rising from the living room floor. Piece by piece, they became the fireplace standing here today. It'd be easy to look at it and assume it was part of the original 1840 construction, but the truth tells us more. This is a 20th century fireplace created from the physical material of an 1840 farmstead. The family built a new heart for the room from stones pulled directly from the surrounding land. The fireplace connected the property to the house. It transformed years of gardening, plowing, and collecting rocks into something permanent. It also established a pattern that continued throughout the family's ownership. They did not preserve the farmhouse by refusing to touch it. They preserved it by making additions that belonged here. History is not always the oldest object in the room. Sometimes history is the answer one generation gives to the work of another. During the 1957 and 1958 academic year, the family temporarily relocated to Cocoa Beach, Florida. While they were away, the farmhouse was rented to a group of University of Michigan students. A home built before the university held its first Ann Arbor class was now filled with its students. And during that year, one of the property's most remarkable stories was born. On January 11, 1958, mathematician, pianist, and musical satirist Tom Lehrer performed at Ann Arbor High School. Lehrer had become known for pairing cheerful melodies with unusually dark and intelligent humor. His songs transformed politics, science, education, war, and the anxieties of the atomic age into sharp musical satire. The public record places Lehrer in Ann Arbor that night. The family story brings him here. According to the account preserved in the family memoir, some of the university students living in the farmhouse met Lehrer after his performance. They persuaded him to return to them to Earhart Road. And sometime that night, Tom Lehrer reportedly sat at an upright piano in this parlor and played for the gathering. There was no social media post, no phone recording, no photograph has surfaced showing him at the piano. But private parties were part of his performing life and were not always formally recorded. The concert places him in Ann Arbor. The students were living in this house, and the family memory carries the evening through this door. A group of university students, one of the era's most original musical minds, and an upright piano inside a stone farmhouse that was already 118 years old. The house stood beyond the center of town, but it was never disconnected from the intellectual and cultural energy growing around Ann Arbor. The university was expanding, the community was changing, and the stories of that changing world kept finding their way into these rooms. For the two children growing up here, the property was more than a house. It was an entire world. They waited for the school bus near a large rock beside Earhart Road. For kindergarten and first grade, the family's son attended Popkins School further north. Built in 1870, Popkins was a one-room brick schoolhouse on Earhart Road. He remembered approximately 28 children sharing the building with one teacher. They ranged from kindergarten through 6th grade. Despite that total, there was only one other child in his particular grade. His earliest education took place in a schoolhouse that belonged to the same rural world as his home. Then, when his family was living temporarily in Florida, the local education system changed. When they returned, he entered the growing Ann Arbor public school system. His education followed the transformation of the community around him. He began inside a one-room country schoolhouse. He continued through the schools of a rapidly expanding university city. Back at home, 4 mature maple trees stood across the front yard. There was a walnut tree near the driveway. 2 more walnut trees grew behind the house. Those trees were already well established when the family arrived in 1954. In the larger walnut behind the home, the children's father built a treehouse approximately 20 feet above the ground. It was essentially a platform made from 2 old doors. The children reached it by climbing a built-in ladder. Years later, the son looked again at the branch that had supported the platform. The treehouse somehow seemed even higher than he remembered. It was the rare childhood distance that grew larger with time instead of smaller. There were above-ground swimming pools. The first was round. A larger oval pool came later. The old chicken coop became a playhouse. There were cherry trees in the south yard. There was a hollow apple tree. The property became a garden, a workshop, a playground, a laboratory, and a place where almost any idea could become an afternoon's adventure. Then there were the winters. For several years, the family constructed an ice rink in the yard. A wooden frame was built, generally measuring around 25 feet by 50 feet. The frame was lined with plastic. The space was flooded, and cold Michigan weather transformed it into a private skating pond. One winter, the father decided the rink needed something more. He built a ramp leading out of the garage and toward the ice. Evidence of the old launch point remained visible in the garage years later. Naturally, he insisted on testing the ramp first. For safety, he climbed onto a flexible flyer sled. He launched himself down the ramp. He reached the ice with considerable speed. Then the sled turned sideways. With almost no ability to steer, he traveled the entire length of the rink. He struck the wooden frame at the far end, broke through it, tumbled over the edge, and snapped one of the sled's runners. He was not injured. The family remembered him as both embarrassed and exhilarated. These are the moments that no property record can preserve. A survey can measure a boundary. A floor plan can locate a room. But memory gives a property motion. It tells us where children climbed, where they skated, where they planted trees, where they waited for the bus, and where a father lost control of the sled while conducting a very serious safety inspection. This was the kind of property that allowed childhood to expand. The acreage invited experiments. The outbuildings invited imagination. And the farmhouse remained at the center of it all. By the early 1960s, Ann Arbor and the surrounding townships were entering a new era. The university was exploding. New neighborhoods were developing. And new transportation routes were connecting Ann Arbor more directly with Detroit and the rest of southeast Michigan. US 23 was constructed through Ann Arbor Township in 1962. The following year, approximately 4 acres from the original family property were acquired as part of the project. The family turned that moment of change into an opportunity to transform the house. Before 1963, a door at the top of the staircase opened into a largely unfinished portion of the second floor. The roof sloped low. Tiny windows near the knee wall provided limited light. A dividing wall separated the upper level into 2 large spaces. The children used part of it as a seasonal playroom. It worked during spring and fall. It became uncomfortable during the extremes of summer and winter. The family saw more than an unfinished upper level. They saw the potential for an entirely new area for comfortable living space. Part of the southern roof was raised. Larger windows were installed. Closets were constructed along the opposite wall. A second bathroom was added. The rear portion became the parents' bedroom. and the open space near the top of the staircase became known within the family as the alcove. The work was ambitious. The father reportedly removed approximately half of the roof himself. Before the structures could be completely enclosed, heavy rain began approaching. The neighboring carpenter was called to help. Together, they covered and secured the open house with tarps until the project could continue. The storm passed. The roof rose, and the second floor became a permanent part of the family home. Today, the changing ceiling heights and roof forms upstairs still preserve that chapter. The farmhouse does not hide the fact that it grew. It shows us exactly where the growth occurred. The region was evolving, the family was evolving, and the house evolved with both. The remaining acreage quickly became the setting for another adventure. Before a communications tower was later constructed, the family created a dirt go-kart track on the property. The route ran toward the far point, turned through a hairpin curve, then returned past the chicken coop. The first machine was a low, homemade go-kart powered by a Briggs & Stratton engine. It had only a few inches of ground clearance. To the children, it felt extremely fast. Later came an old four-door Renault with a manual transmission. The shape of the property had changed. The children immediately found a new way to make it their own. The father approached the property with the curiosity of an engineer. He did not view an old house as something too delicate to understand. He saw a working system, something that could be studied, improved, and thoughtfully adapted. During the 1970s or early 1980s, he installed a forced air solar heating system. A large solar collector occupied much of the southern wall of the newer garage. A fan moved heated air from the collector into the house. Ductwork carried that air beneath the rear office with openings serving the dinette and living room. The system remained in use for years. A later swimming pool was also heated using a solar array. This was decades before solar equipment became a familiar feature on residential properties. An 1840 stone farmhouse had become a place for experimenting with the future. During the 1980s, the building entered another period of expansion. The old woodshed was removed. In its place, the family constructed the attached garage, a connecting hallway, and the rear office. The former pump room remained and eventually became the laundry area. When the rear office was completed, drywall concealed what had once been an exterior stone wall. The old woodshed disappeared from view, but it did not disappear entirely. During the 2024 renovation, the family remembered something important. The back wall of the woodshed had never been painted. The drywall in the rear office was removed, and behind it, the original stone wall reappeared. Near the upper portion of the masonry, a line remains visible. It marks the place where the roof of the vanished woodshed once met the farmhouse. That is one of the most revealing details anywhere on the property. The stone was not added to make a newer room look historic. It had always been here. The room grew around it. An exterior wall became an interior wall, and the house preserved the outline of a structure that no longer existed. That single roofline tells us what 1575 Earhart is really about: change without erasure. By 2024, the farmhouse contained more than 180 years of additions, repairs, experiments, and family decisions. The latest renovation faced the same question that every generation before it had faced: what should change, and what must remain? The previous kitchen cabinetry and counters were removed. Approximately 6 feet of wall between the kitchen and dinette were opened. The change created a more natural relationship between the rooms and allowed the kitchen to function as a modern gathering space. A former passage into the fireplace room was reopened after having been closed for decades. The first floor bathroom was completely renovated while remaining within its established footprint. The laundry room floor was raised. The washer and dryer were relocated from the former wet bar area, and a laundry sink was added. Upstairs, the primary bedroom remained in the area created during the 1963 expansion, but the usable floor space increased. The primary bathroom was reconfigured and rebuilt. A third full bathroom with a tub was created in the area that had once been the alcove. A 3-zone mini split system was installed to serve the kitchen, rear office, and second floor primary bedroom. A new steam boiler was added in late 2024. Throughout the project, the historic portions of the home were protected. The goal was not to force an 1840 farmhouse to imitate new construction. The goal was to make the house comfortable and functional for modern life without removing the materials that made it irreplaceable. Then, in 2025, the property was connected to municipal water and sewer. The old well, septic tank, and septic field were decommissioned. The improvement may not be as visually dramatic as uncovering a stone wall or opening the kitchen, but it represents one of the most significant transitions in the history of the property. A rural farmhouse that had once depended entirely upon its own private systems became connected to modern public infrastructure. The community had not simply grown around the house. It had finally reached it. Today, each generation remains visible. The redesigned kitchen belongs to the present. The fireplace belongs to the late 1950s. The upper roofline records the transformation of 1963. The garage and rear office represent the next era of expansion. The exposed stone preserves the memory of the woodshed. And the original floors, old glass, thick masonry, and handmade irregularities carry us all the way back to 1840. Every room contains more than one period of the house. Nothing exists in isolation. That may be the truest definition of preservation. Preservation is not always the act of returning a building to one supposedly perfect moment. Sometimes preservation means allowing every generation to remain legible. The original stone, the family-built fireplace, the raised roof, the later additions, the rediscovered woodshed wall, the modern kitchen, the updated mechanical systems. No single layer tells the complete story. Together, they explain why the house is still here. Today, 1575 Earhart Road offers approximately 3,549 square feet. There are 5 bedrooms and 3 full bathrooms. 2 bedrooms are located on the main level. 3 are upstairs, including the expanded primary suite. There are multiple living and gathering spaces, a formal dining room, a redesigned kitchen, front and rear office spaces, a full walkout basement, a screened porch, an attached 2-car garage, additional detached garage space, and historic outbuildings that preserve the property's connection to its agricultural past. But numbers alone do not explain the experience of walking through this home. In the living room, the fireplace contains stones gathered from the property by the family who arrived in 1954. In the front office, the built-in storage recalls the years when that room served as the parents' bedroom. In the rear office, the roofline of the former woodshed remains visible across what was once an exterior wall. Upstairs, the ceilings and roof forms record the transformation completed during the 1960s. The kitchen and bathrooms provided the comfort expected today. The original soft pine floors, exposed stone walls, wavy-glass windows, and timeless architectural details keep the homes connected to where it began. The age of the house is not expressed through decoration designed to look old. It exists in the materials themselves, in the thickness of the walls, in the subtle movement beneath the floors, in the imperfect view through historic glass, in the hand-built character that cannot be convincingly recreated through new construction. Outside, mature trees frame the farmhouse. Historic outbuildings give the property a sense of place that would be nearly impossible to reproduce today. And all of it remains only minutes from downtown Ann Arbor and the University of Michigan. The city grew. The university grew. The property evolved, but the relationship between them remains extraordinary. Historic architecture, country space, modern improvements, and close proximity to one of Michigan's most important educational, cultural, and economic centers. For more than 70 years, 1575 Earhart Road has remained in the same family. The boy who arrived here at 4.5 years old grew up among these rooms, trees, gardens, and outbuildings. The memories preserved throughout this story belong to his childhood and to the life of this family. The side door, the garden, the tractor, the stones covering the living room floor, the treehouse, the ice rink, the go-kart track, the one-room schoolhouse, the unfinished upper level, the roof open to the sky. His parents planted the trees. His father constructed the fireplace. His family shaped the rooms, and he carried the memory of those changes forward. Today, he and his wife are preparing the family property for its next chapter. After more than 70 years in the same family, 1575 Earhart Road is now on the market. The active offering includes this 1840s stone farmhouse on an approximately 1-acre homesite. Additional acreage is available separately. The home is currently offered at $1,700,000, and I have the privilege of representing it as the listing agent with At Properties Christie's International Real Estate. That is the real estate fact. The more important human fact is that a family is preparing to hand forward a place containing nearly an entire lifetime of memories. I often say that I do not restore old homes. I sell them and I tell their stories. With a property like this, telling the story is not an extra piece of marketing. It's a part of the responsibility. Because the next owner is not simply purchasing 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and 3,549 square feet. They're entering a timeline that's already in progress. One day, that person will make a decision of their own. They may plant another tree, open another doorway, repair a wall, host a gathering, welcome a child, create a tradition, and the house will gain another layer. That is not the end of preservation. It is how preservation continues. There are still stories waiting to be discovered. The early photographs may reveal more details about the original appearance of the farmhouse. The stone, framing, windows, and roof may still contain clues that no one has recognized. Future owners will find their own connections, their own questions, their own moments of discovery. But a house does not need every mystery solved to be extraordinary. What we already know is remarkable. A stone farmhouse built in 1840. A home already standing when the University of Michigan began teaching its first 7 students in Ann Arbor. A property that once included approximately 10 acres. A parlor where a wedding is remembered. A room connected through family history to a late-night performance by Tom Lehrer. A fireplace assembled like a puzzle from stories gathered across the land. A second floor created through the determination of a family's willing to raise the roof themselves. A treehouse constructed from old doors. A backyard ice rink. A homemade go-kart track. An early experiment in residential solar heating. A vanished woodshed preserved through one line still visible in the stone. And a family that spent more than 70 years changing the house without allowing it to forget what it had been. The documents tell one part of the story. The family memories tell another. And the house itself continues to reveal the rest. The University of Michigan made its journey from Detroit to Ann Arbor in 1837. 3 years later, this farmhouse entered the landscape. From the rural township of 1840, through the expansion of the university, through the transformations of the 20th century, and into the Ann Arbor of today. 1575 Earhart Road remained, not untouched, not frozen, alive. The complete active listing and showing information are available in the description. To learn more about the home or arrange a private showing, contact me directly. I'm Chris Hubble, the listing agent for 1575 Earhart Road with App Properties Christie's International Real Estate. Subscribe to History Loves Company and continue following our journey from Detroit to Ann Arbor as we explore the people, places, roads, and buildings connecting these communities. And when you're in Pontiac, stop by the Foundry by History Loves Company inside the historic Riker Building at 35 West Huron Street. Come say hi, share a story, listen to one, spend 15 minutes with us, or stay for 4 hours. Because history is always better when it has company, and every home has a story. Let's discover yours.